If you are building your business on the side, then listen up. It's not easy, but my guest today will show you how to build a successful side hustle. So if you want to learn how to run an online business on the side and not work yourself to death or go crazy, then this is the episode for you, my friend. Welcome to the Affiliate Guy podcast. If you want to grow your income, serve your tribe, and enjoy all the benefits of affiliate marketing and having your own affiliates, you're in the right place. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get started. So I'm pumped because today I am joined by Mark Mason of Late Night Internet Marketing. Now, this podcast that he has, it is crazy successful, and it's called that, Late Night Internet Marketing, well, because he does all of his marketing late at night. He runs his entire online business late at night because he has a full-time job. And yet he has one of the top podcasts on iTunes, crazy profitable online business. And I mean, he's just an awesome side hustler. So I asked him to come on and share with you guys some of his top tips, top strategies for running a successful side hustle. And he said yes, because I've been asking him for a long time, and he's an amazing dude. And we've been friends for a while. We wanted to connect. It's just been a matter of, he has the Late Night Internet Marketing podcast, right? I don't work at night. I don't work late at night. And so it was really hard for us to be able to do this until the pandemic hit. And so it's one of those things. I get it. Things have sucked, but it was awesome that he and I finally got to connect because he's been working from home. So we recorded an amazing podcast interview, tons of useful tips, actionable advice. So you do not want to miss this. I mean, I'm telling you, this is a great interview. We actually touch on some really cool stuff that you're going to want to listen to. So before we jump into the interview, a quick listener shout out from the Prairie Homestead, who said simple and super useful. I don't know why that was hard for me. Simple and super. I can't do it. Simple and super. All right. I appreciate Matt's simple approach to affiliate marketing, a topic that can feel formidable to new bloggers and influencers especially. He breaks it down into bite-sized chunks that are actionable and understandable. We'll definitely be recommending this podcast to friends. That is so awesome. And I recommend that you do too. Please share this with someone if you believe that they can benefit from what we share on this podcast. If you know somebody who's trying to start a side hustle and they don't want to make all the mistakes that I made when I did mine, that Mark made when he started his, share this episode. Share this episode. Take a screenshot of it and tag me on Facebook or Twitter. Share it with your friends. Let them know about this episode so they can get benefit from this. And then I highly recommend checking out Mark's show after this interview. Now, I'm his next guest, actually, and we're going to cover some stuff that I rarely talk about here on my own podcast, which is really cool. Before we jump into the interview, I just want to let you know that when I was on his show, I offered his listeners 3 of my most popular affiliate marketing reports, and I didn't want you to miss out. So we created a page for his listeners, but we actually created the same page. We just cloned that page. It's up at a different link. So, if you don't know, we want to track when we're on podcasts. When I go on a podcast, I want to track, how many people they send, how many people we get to subscribe as a result of that. So it's a different link than what I share on his interview. Just go to mattmcwilliams.com/3 reports. mattmcwilliams.com/3 and then the word reports. You'll get my affiliate freedom report where I share the proven step-by-step method for getting rapid success in affiliate marketing. You'll get my how to win at affiliate marketing, even if you have a small list or no list at all report. And you'll get my affiliate marketing sales secrets report, which is something that we previously have only released once. Once in the last 5 years have we released this, but we're releasing it again. And I love this report. It's got the 5 secrets that top affiliate marketers always employ. It allows them to outsell all other affiliates. These are the sales secrets, right? It's got 7 ways to go the extra mile in your affiliate promo that are just going to wow your audience. It's got so much good stuff in this report. So you can grab those at mattmcwilliams.com/3, the word reports. And now for my interview with side hustler extraordinaire, Mark Mason. Mark, my man, it is so good to finally have you on the show, man. Welcome.
Yeah, and I just want to apologize to you up front for being the hardest guest to schedule ever. we side hustle guys can be a little tricky to schedule sometimes, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, on like level of difficulty, there was like the Queen of England, Tony Robbins, Mark Mason.
Yeah,
it was like somewhere right around there, right below Tony Robbins was.
Yeah, Tony and I use all the same people, so that's probably why. No, I'm kidding.
So when you talk to Tony and say your people call my people, you just basically say, hey,
that's why Tony and I don't talk much, because we're both so hard to schedule. We can hardly ever get together.
Yeah, that's why the Queen and I don't ever really speak anymore. We've taken different paths in life. So, well, it is good to have you, bud. Welcome.
Yeah, it's really good to be here.
So, before people are listening to this interview, they heard me, read like your official bio and all the boring stuff about you. But tell us the unboring stuff about you, a little bit about your journey and how you ended up with this, helping the people that you help today.
Yeah. So I was in a situation, I worked for a fantastic, amazing Fortune 500 company in the electronics sector, and I'd been there for almost 30 years. I love this company, but business, goes up and down. And in order to make really solid fiscal decisions for shareholders, sometimes you have to make tough choices because you have a fiduciary responsibility to the people that are invested in the business. And at one point in the downturn in 2008, 2009 timeframe, I found myself on the other side of the desk from the story you usually hear. Matt, you usually hear the story about people who start an online business because they got laid off.
Yeah.
But in this case, I was the guy who was doing the laying off. And these were outstanding business decisions, but they were impacting real people.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it was gut wrenching. And some of these people, my kids played with their kids. I had been to their houses for dinner, as that kind of people. And I recognized at that moment, I could easily be on the other side of the desk, right? And so I knew I needed a plan B, and that's how my journey got started, side hustling in internet marketing. It's turned into much more than that. It's not really about the plan B for me so much anymore. But in that very beginning moment, it was really all about, hey, I have really got to have a backup plan here because this corporate job is not really as solid as it feels.
Yeah. Yeah, I say often that I think what you're doing is probably the least risky thing you could possibly be doing, because I know you love working for the company you're working with, and you make good money, I presume, or you wouldn't stay. That'd be weird.
Yeah.
But if for some reason you got laid off tomorrow, you instantly your fallback is better than most people's main thing, and so you instantly have that cushion. Not to mention over the past, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost 10 years, you've been building that cushion, because that's the great thing about a side hustle is you get to you live off what you make in your full-time job, and the rest just gets to, go to fun stuff or savings, and it makes it easier to go full-time. But I had somebody ask me, a few years ago, when I told them about going from corporate to, being an entrepreneur, and they're like, man, that must have been so risky. And I was like, heck no, I have multiple streams of income now. If one of my clients quits, I'm good. I was like, at my old company, I worked for a small business, about 12 employees, where the CEO was the figurehead of the company, kind of like our business. I was like, I was one DUI away from being unemployed.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if he went out and did something illegal tomorrow and got caught, I don't have a job. That's risk. That is risky.
Serious risk. Absolutely. So when I was in this situation, my wife and I were talking about some things. We'd always kind of wanted to do something, weren't sure what. And she called me. She was watching the Today Show, and she saw this segment about a guy. Now, this was 11 years ago. He was an old retired home handyman, and he had written down everything he ever knew about fixing doorknobs and toilets and leaky bathtubs and faucets and roofs. He had written it down on a website and monetized it with AdSense and was making $11,000 a month. Now, at the time, this sounded crazy to me. I mean, this guy didn't even have all his teeth, okay? And he's making $11,000 a month. So I go look at this website. It's
like $1,000 per tooth, right?
Exactly right. And this was the ugliest website I'd ever seen. And I knew at that moment that if this guy could do this, then I needed to figure this out. And so that started my journey on trying to sort of unravel the mystery of how money moves around on the internet and how people get paid for doing work online.
Wow, that's so awesome. So you got into, you kind of dove head first, when you look back at your story, but your podcast, and I want everybody to go check this out. It's called Late Night. It is still called Late Night Internet Marketing, isn't it?
That's right, because I do all my internet marketing late at night.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
And I didn't know if that had changed recently, with everything that's going on. We're recording this, in week 3 of lockdown. I feel like it's going to be like a thing that we look back on. There's like, AD and BC. It's like before coronavirus, after coronavirus. I don't know. Business BC, right? And so you jumped into this podcast, though. When did you actually start the podcast?
It was on again, off again start thing, but I started in 2009. So the very first episode
11 years,
was in 2009. I called our mutual friend, Cliff Ravenscraft, and I said, "Hey, Cliff, I need to figure this out." And he said, "Yeah, order this." So I wrote him a check. Another benefit of having a day job, I just wrote a big check for a bunch of equipment. And it showed up, and I've been podcasting ever since.
And so here you are, you're doing this. You've been podcasting for 11 years, Late Night Internet Marketing. What episode number are you on now? Roughly like 1,000?
Couple hundred, yeah.
Really? Only a couple hundred?
Well, on again, off again, right? Okay. So one of the challenges that I've had, and this is something that we'll get into, is how to prioritize the podcast. So I've gone in seasons, but it's a much more regular thing now than it has been in the past. Yeah.
Okay. So, but still 11 years, you've had some amazing guests. You mentioned Cliff Ravenscraft. I want to park there for a second. So how did you connect with Cliff? Because Cliff's pretty well known. He's pretty successful. When you wrote that check to him, would you have considered him a friend at that point?
No. In fact, I don't know if you know Jeremy Van Orden, but he's one of the original podcasters in this space.
Yeah.
Jeremy and I were, Jason Van Orden. Jeremy,
I knew who you were talking about.
Sorry, yeah. Jason Van Orden and I were pretty good friends at that time, because I had been through Internet Business Mastery. Actually, Pat Flynn and I went through Internet Business Mastery together. Yeah, at the same time.
That's crazy.
And so that's how we knew Jason. And Jason was one of the original podcasters out there. He had Gotham Cast way back in the early 2000s. And I called Jason and I said, "Hey, I want to start a podcast. What do I do?" And Jason said, "Call Cliff." So I called Cliff. I ordered the stuff. Since that time, Cliff and I have become best friends. He's one of my very best friends online. And we talk almost every day, several times a week. He's a super fantastic guy. But no, at the time, I was just one of his zillion customers that was interested in podcasting.
Okay. But I mean, I just, the reason I asked that is I wanted to point out for everyone who's listening, that was the beginning of a friendship,
Absolutely.
And so for those of you who are reluctant to reach out to people, I don't say this in a self-serving way, but one of the best ways to get in with people is to become a customer, and in this particular case, it wasn't that you just went out and bought a course of his or a product of his and then went, well, whatever, and didn't really use it. No, you went out and did what he said and, built, it's a podcast. Like every time I look, it's somewhere on, it's on iTunes. Like when you go, here's how I judge a podcast value. Like if it's good, if I can find you on the, what is it called? Let me see here to actually know what this is called. On the See All, top podcasts in a category. So yours is I think we're in management and marketing still, I think is what it's called, which are two
everything's moving around, but
yeah. Let's just combine two completely unrelated topics into one category on iTunes. It's like, they have like religion and spirituality. That makes sense. It would be like, religion and comedy. Well, actually, there might be some similarity. But anyway, I don't know.
Someday, yeah.
I'm analogically challenged, so deal with that, guys. One of the best ways is to go out and buy it, use it, become a success story, which I'm assuming this was probably the progression for you. You got to report back to Cliff multiple times and say, "Dude, it's working. I'm doing this. I've got this many listeners. I'm I'm enjoying this. Blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "I want to know more about this Mark Mason guy."
Yeah.
Is that how it worked?
It's very similar to that. And I would say, I'm frequently the kind of guy who wants to add value into other people's lives. And so when you're someone's customer, it gives you the opportunity to have that conversation and add value in those ways. And sometimes adding value is exactly what you said, where you're just validating the work. In this case, at the time, it was Cliff's life work, and saying, hey, man, this stuff is great. I'm using this. Here's an idea. Here's the challenges I'm having. Here's the success I'm having. That's very valuable. From that grew into everyday conversations about other parts of business. There were times, I remember, I'm really technical and Cliff is not, when I'd help Cliff set up an opt-in form, just as part of these kind of conversations, just the friendly borrow a cup of sugar kind of things that you do for a normal neighbor, those work online too. I never did them with the intention of building a friendship, but those things come out of that. Normally you tend to hang around people that you like, and Cliff Ravenscraft is super easy to like. He's like the nicest guy on the planet. And so that just developed normally from there. And I got to know his kids and his wife, and I've spoken at his events. And like I said, now we're really good friends. We're in a mastermind together, and we talk in that mastermind once a week. And then on the side with text conversations and Voxer and all that every day.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So I want to talk with you. I just couldn't let that go. When you said back in 2009,
I got it. Yeah,
our mutual friend Cliff Ravenscraft, I'm thinking, I don't know if you knew Cliff back then. No, and I love that story because it's exactly what we teach people is, build the relationship first. And, and
invest, right? Invest in people.
Well, and let's be honest, you have access to a great mind now.
Absolutely.
And I know that's not why you did it. I mean, I totally 100% believe you, but it's been a very, what's the term, symbiotic relationship.
Totally.
As all relationships should be. And I think people ask me all the time, like, how do you get to become friends with that person? I'm like, you become friends with them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same as becoming friends with anybody. You do something for them, and then you do another thing for them, and then eventually they reciprocate, and then next thing you know, you're talking, and then you act like a normal human being. Don't stand right behind them and clear your throat, because that's weird, people. Just saying. Not that anybody's ever done that to me last month.
The word I like, Matt, is invest.
Yeah,
I think you should invest in people in general, whether it's your kids, your spouse, or somebody you just met. Life is about the investment you make in other people to a large extent. And sometimes there's huge upside to that. And that's not why you do it, but it's a fact. It's sometimes just, you end up with awesome friends.
Yeah, I love it, man. So you're doing what a lot of listeners are doing. You're balancing a full-time job, you're with a passion, with a side hustle. And one thing, we were kind of talking about what we wanted to talk about in this episode. It was there were three things we were talking about. Number one, Cliff Ravenscraft. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're not talking about
Cliff is always on the list.
Yeah. What are the tips, the hacks, the tricks that you've learned? I mean, you've been doing this for 11 years, balancing this side hustle with with this full-time job. So maybe let's focus actually on what are some of the mistakes you made in the first few years that you don't make now, that you've learned not to make when doing those two things.
Yeah. So it's too bad this isn't a 7-day long seminar, because the list of mistakes are.
Let's make it. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. So, I think the first thing that it's sort of a double mistake. They're related. The first mistake that I see people make all the time is they don't have a clear understanding of why it is that they're actually doing this side hustle. You got to understand your why. Another one of our mutual acquaintances, I won't be too presumptuous, Michael Hyatt, his wife Gail, says people who lose their why lose their way, right? Yeah. And so if you don't know why you're doing this side hustles are hard. They take a lot of work. You have to work on them after you've already given a whole bunch to your day job employer. And so you need a reason to go forward. When people don't know their why, they make the second part of this mistake, which is they go after money instead of purpose. Those are the two related mistakes that I see. People will start doing something just for the money. And believe me, Matt, there's nothing wrong with money. I love money, and you got to have it, right?
Big fan of it. Right up there with oxygen, as
right.
would say.
You must have money, and and people that have limiting beliefs around money and that money is evil. That's another thing that they really need to unpack, because it turns out the more money you have, the more people you can help. Look at this right now. I mean, if you got money, you can go spend it on local businesses during this crisis and help local business people survive. That's just one of a million examples. But if that's your only reason for your business, that's a red flag for me, because that will not sustain you during difficult periods in your business.
Yeah, I agree. And so what was
I made? I made that mistake. I was looking for that security, looking for another source of money. That's another way. I was freaked out because I went through this thing where I had to let people go. I didn't like that. And so I was looking to get away from that. I was running away from something. And that's another thing. If your motivation is a running away motivation, that's a lot different mindset than a running towards motivation. When we run towards things, that seems to be a lot higher leverage, a lot purer motivation than when we're running away. Scary running away motivations work great in the short term, but for long term, we really need to see something out there that we can run towards. So I always tell people, don't make that mistake of failing to take the time to identify what it is that you really want to accomplish, where you want to be in 3 or 5 years, and what you want to be able to say to people when your pastor or your grandmother or your friend asks you what you're doing and why you're doing it. You want to be able to tell a great story. Yeah. And, I'm schlocking banner ads on crappy websites is not a great story, right? What you want us to be able to say is, I've got the best website on the internet that helps people do this. And oh, by the way, I'm able to help those people profitably, and I love it.
Yeah. I know back when my first big online business, not my very first one, but my first big one, truth is, we ended up being very successful. And I'm forever thankful for it, but I didn't really have a great why other than I wanted to be in business with some friends. And I liked the idea of building an $18 million a year business. And I like the fact that I could be in my mid-20s and have a corner office and, kind of.
I like that idea too. Those are good ideas, Matt.
Yeah. And it was great. Don't get me wrong. But that why did not sustain me when things got easy. It's actually weird. It sustained me when things were hard.
Right.
This is the funny thing I found about whys. Whys not only sustain you through the hard times, they not only sustain you when you're 100. I remember what it was like: $100,000 in debt, living on Totino's Pizza, sleeping on my mom's pull-out couch. I know what that was like. Waking up at, going to bed at 2 a.m, waking up at 6 a.m, working 20 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then Sunday I only worked 15.
Right.
I totally remember that.
Yeah.
That why got me through that. Ironically, what it didn't get me through is when it got easy. When we were making $50,000 to $100,000 a day, and I quite frankly, I kind of had everything I wanted, materially.
Sure.
Why didn't get me through that? So I'm kind of curious. What was your why? What was it when you started this? You mentioned security.
Yeah, I think the why when I started was this security money thing, but it's turned into helping people. So the most excitement that I get out of this activity right now, like for example, if someone hears this episode that we're recording right now and sends one of us a tweet or makes a comment on the podcast episode and says, wow, this really cleared something up for me. It allowed me to move forward. Or maybe a year from now, they look back on this and they say, wow, that changed everything. When Mark said that I needed to figure out why I was doing what I was doing, that's what I did. And now my life's completely different and much better. Those kinds of emails, I actually keep a file of those. I think a lot of people do this.
Oh, yeah.
So I can look back on this because that's really gives me juice to go. I really like that. The money's necessary, but that helping people piece is, and helping people profitably is the phrase I usually use. That's really my why today.
love that. What is your Twitter handle, by the way? Just type in @MA and it pulls up.
Oh yeah. So it's Late Night IM,
Okay.
LATENIGHTIM for internet marketing.
Yep. That's what I love about Hootsuite is I can just type in MA for Mark. I don't even know your Twitter handle. Like there's only 2 Marks on my that I ever message, and it like remembers them. So I love that. So guys, do that actually. Shoot Mark a tweet as you're listening or after you're listening. Share with him, a couple of nuggets that you get out of this, something that that you're going to apply in your business. And if he's anything like he just said, and like I know me, we screenshot those things, we save them. We have a channel in Slack that at least once a day somebody's saying something nice about me, and guys, it gets you through a lot. It's like you've heard of John Acuff perhaps talk about this critics math.
Yeah, absolutely.
1,000 compliments plus 1 insult equals 1 insult.
Right.
Somewhat true if you have the wrong mindset. I'll tell you that I get insulted every now and again. People, we get hate, but all you gotta do is just go through that testimonials channel in Slack and just scroll a few times and see the lives that we've impacted. And I'm like, just pushes away that hate. So we love that stuff. So send him a tweet, guys. Let him know what you're getting out of this, or just say that he's awesome. You can even just say that you're awesome. Heard you on Matt's show, and you're awesome. So that's your motivation today. That's your why today. You also talked about, I want to dig in a little bit real quick on the running away from versus the running toward. Like what does that mean really?
I think, we're motivated. All the motivations that we experience are either in response to something bad that's happening, or they're aspirational. So you may be motivated to go get a job at Domino's because you need to pay the bills next week, right? That's, you're running away from that fear of bankruptcy, or, you've got that negative thing that's going to happen to you if you don't make money. And what I find in online business is a lot of times, especially in the side hustle space, people are trying to build a business because they're running away from a day job that they hate. And, that's okay to get started. Sometimes that's the impetus we need.
Yeah.
So that's a real motivation. We need to ignore it, but we need to not ignore it, but we need to also understand what's a motivation that we can find instead that's aspirational, that can be a running toward motivation. What is it that we want to build? So you want to get out of your day job. I get it. But what do you aspire to do? What is it that you want to do, and why do you want to do that? And if your answer is, Mark, I just want to make money, that's still going to be largely the running away from motivation. I need money. I got to get away from debt or the danger surrounding losing security for my family. We need to find those more aspirational motivations. For some people, that's going to be the Ferrari or the beautiful house, or maybe the ability to pay for their mom's medical care, or put their mom in a better nursing home, or maybe better yet, to pay for their kids' college, or maybe better yet, to help other people, to give back to the community. I mean, you see, as these get more aspirational, they get more and more powerful. So if you can figure out why you're doing something, maybe there's some injustice or problem you want to solve. Maybe you had an addiction and now you want to help people that have an addiction. Whatever that is that you want to run towards, if you can find that magical secret sauce, that can really propel you forward in your business.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've found, Mark, is a visualization here is one of the best ways to help people kind of run towards something, is actually in a way to turn the lens. Like it involves pulling people toward them. I just found that like when we help our students, when we help our audience we always tell people, like, you don't have to be 2 miles down the road from your audience. You just need to be 1 step ahead. And in fact, that's usually the best way to lead people. Like, the analogy I give people is, do you want your friend to lead you by being 2 miles ahead of you on a 20-mile hike, yelling at you going, "Hey, slowpoke, hurry up."
Right.
Or do you want them to just be there going, "Hey, grab my hand. I'll lead you through this, I'll lead you through this difficult part." And I think if you could turn the lens and picture just being one step ahead of your audience and helping them to get to where you are. So you mentioned like addiction. If you overcame addiction, you are a leader. Like by definition, you are a leader, and you can help potentially millions of people. Whatever you have overcome, you've lost weight, you run faster, you jump higher, you lift more. I mean, it doesn't matter. You came out of, think about Dave Ramsey. What did he do? Paid off $1 million in debt. What does he teach people to do? How to pay off debt.
Exactly.
That's literally, he just took his thing and now teaches people how to do it, Yeah. And then when he started building wealth, what did he teach people how to do? Build wealth. Then when he started building a company, what did he teach people to do? How to build a company.
Yeah.
And if you look at his progression, he didn't start doing any of those things until he had reached a certain point, and he reaches back his hand, grabs him, and takes his audience along. And I think that's the right way to do this. And it's what you're doing, which
it's
is
not
really,
a hard recipe,
cool,
right? It goes to transparency and authenticity as well. You teach what you know, and even if you're teaching the journey that you're on, because as you point out exactly right, and I say this all the time, you really only need to be 10% ahead of somebody to help them.
Yep.
And so if you're clearing a path, you think about these construction tools that clear paths. I mean, they just mow stuff down and get everything out of the way. If you're that guy and you can communicate that to your audience, that's fantastic. That'll help a lot of people.
Love it. So I want to stick with mistakes for just one more moment. I know, and in your case, your wife was the one who came to you and kind of gave you the seed for this idea.
Absolutely.
But so maybe you haven't experienced this. Maybe you've never had any marital troubles whatsoever. I'm joking.
I don't know. My first wife about that.
Yeah. So, but you started with a little bit of advantage. This wasn't like a crazy idea that you had. This was a crazy idea that you kind of had together. But you're working a full-time job, and working a full-time job in your environment with a commute in a major metropolitan area is probably fairly a stressful job on some level. Even though I know you enjoy it, it's
on every level. It's stressful on every level.
So, and now you want to spend some number of hours a week that could be spent doing anything but working. So let's talk through that, like especially to the guy out there, the guy or the gal they want to do this and their spouse already thinks they don't spend enough time with them. What are some of the mistakes that you made? But then we'll kind of come to the good side of that. But how did that go for you especially over the first 5 or 6 years when maybe you weren't bringing in much money with a side hustle?
Yeah, no doubt. Is some false dichotomies in there too that I want to unpack. So absolutely, the underlying premise of the question is, how do you deal with the fact that you need to pay attention to your spouse in order to have a healthy relationship? And the answer is really simple. You just prioritize that over everything else. So it's not like there's some magic trick that you have to perform in order to do all these things. It's that the first things have to be first. It doesn't mean that they have to be first each and every time.
Yeah.
And that one thing is always first, and the other thing that is always last. Is that on balance, whatever the things that are important to you in your life, whether it's your God or your family or your, whatever it is, that stuff has to be first. And you have to invest in that at the right level. For me, that's sort of how the late night internet marketing brand got branded, because of that priority in my life. I don't do a lot of internet marketing stuff in the kind of golden hour between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. That's when I spend time with my family. We're doing homework. I mean, if you try, it's one of the reasons I'm so hard to schedule, is because when I run up against someone who does most of their stuff during the day and they want to talk like this, with COVID now, all bets are off. Okay, I can do anything I want. But normally, during the daytime, I'm at my day job, and during the evening time, which is prime time for podcasting interviews when you're not doing them during the day, I'm with my family. I coach a baseball team. My wife and I work on her business together. She's got a great photography business that she runs, and she's an incredibly talented photographer. I help her with all the website and back end and lead capture, Facebook ads and all that stuff with that. We do all that kind of stuff. We eat dinner together as a family. That's our priority. The internet marketing stuff happens later. And so is there some overlap? Sure. Sometimes I come home and I say, hey, honey, I got to do this interview at 7. Is that okay? She's like, sure, absolutely. It's on the calendar, no issue.
Communication.
So communication's key. The false dichotomy is that these people that don't have time aren't doing something else anyway. Those people that are not spending enough time on their marriage, they're already not doing that. It's not because of work. It's because they're watching NCIS or playing golf or whatever they're doing. You do whatever you do with all your time, right? We all have the same 24 hours a day. In most of my experiences, the people that are sacrificing their family for their business or claiming they don't have time for a side hustle, that's the case because they prioritized other stuff besides their family in their lives. And you can find it every time. These are the same people who want to tell me what's going on with Survivor. It's like, if you want to have a successful side hustle, it might mean that you can't watch Survivor this season, or Breaking Bad may have to sit on Netflix for a while before you can do it. That may just be your reality. That's a choice you have to make, and you have to also decide that all that stuff is less important than your marriage.
See, I love that. I mean, and it might mean for a season, I think you have to acknowledge, and it might mean for a season if you have been spending the full, I say full, like there's a mandatory 3 hours that you must spend with your spouse, no more, no less.
Right.
But if you are currently, you're in a great relationship and you're spending what you feel is a lot of time, it might eat into it a little bit. And that's just, again, communication. If you agree that, normally you average 3 hours a day together, and that's going to become 2.5. You're going to take it a half hour from there and an hour from Survivor time and, whatever. Then, that's a conversation you have. What if you don't have a supportive spouse? I mean, I know you have, but I know you probably had some students, some listeners that didn't have a supportive spouse. Is there anything that they can do, or any tips you'd give them?
Yeah. I mean, the best strategy that I've seen for this is to try and swizzle what you're doing in a way that you can generate engagement. So that your spouse feels like they're part of what it is that you're trying to do. They have some investment. If you can find a way to make them a stakeholder, whether that means build a part of the business around some of their interests or make them a part of it in some way that they actually enjoy, that's the easiest path to changing that, is to get them involved in some way. Beyond that, the other way is to be incredibly successful, and that will make people see, oh yeah, now I get it. Now I understand why you're doing what you're doing. But it's wrong to minimize it. That can be a really tough problem because it affects your mindset. When the people that mean the most to you don't believe in what you're doing, it makes it really hard for you to believe in yourself. And so it's one of the things that I always tell people: whatever you do, you really have to invest in fixing that, because that has such a detrimental impact on your mindset. It's not something you can just ignore.
That's powerful. And I to that last point about be really successful, jewelry and nice vacations do go a long way.
They do. I mean, part of it is, so it's why, part of it gets back to why too, Matt. So if why you're doing what you're doing is to get your family in a better place, and your spouse is clear on that, then at least you can be aligned on that. And now you get down to, well, I don't believe that affiliate marketing is a legitimate way to make money. What do you mean make money on the internet? But when that $2,000 ClickBank check comes in, or whatever it is, that tends to make that go away real fast. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know for us, I mean, when I was starting this, my wife was super supportive, and I went 2 years without making a dime.
Yeah.
In fact,
we very common.
We went we didn't go into debt. We just spent a lot of money and didn't have any return on it, So it was coming from my full-time stuff. And she was super supportive, but I remember on the same day from a client. So when I say my full-time thing, it was my full-time job, but we owned a business, but I owned my job.
Right.
I was doing consulting, but I hated it every minute of it. Right. Or at least 99% of the minutes. I hated it. And on the same day, I got a $22,000 check for a month's work with a client, in the mail. Awesome. And I got a $588 deposit from Michael Hyatt, my very first revenue from my blog. And I'll never forget, about noon, I checked the mail, threw the check on the thing. I already knew what it was for because we'd invoice. And I was like, well, hey, a check from them,
Right.
Which, more than what most people make in, 5 months, but I wasn't that excited about it.
It was expected.
When I got that $588 PayPal deposit, because now all of a sudden my blog was profitable. It was profitable to the tune of about $88 that month. This thing that I've been working on for 2 years, waking up at 5:30 in the morning, working for 2-3 hours a day, not seeing a dime. And when I got that in, I yelled, I ran and I said, come here, you got to see. I'm pointing at this. And we're like, yeah, and we went, I remember we celebrated. We still lost money because we spent $500 that month, spent about $200 at dinner.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so we still lost money because of that. But it was okay, now we've done it. And so I know for me, it was, I couldn't have done it without a supportive spouse. But one of the keys was to exactly what you said, was to continually point to what was possible.
Yeah.
And just to involve her in, as even just proof, something that it's not really her skill set, but proofreading the blog post and getting to give input on it. And what about this word? Not this word. What if you did this, change this formatting? That made it something that we did together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always powerful. And I tell you, another thing that I counsel people that have this struggle is to actually resist the temptation to react and actually try to listen. So if your spouse isn't supporting what you're doing and they're telling, oh, this is stupid, your gut reaction is, what do you mean this is stupid? I've decided to do this. How dare you insult me that way? I'm going to react strongly. Why is your spouse saying that? What is their concern? And almost always these kinds of feelings are coming, most things like that come from fear. Your spouse has some fear. They fear that you're going to waste money. They fear that your time is going to go away and you won't be able to spend time with them. They fear, whatever. You got to understand what that is. And a lot of times if you address that fear and understand it, take the time to understand it, which is a huge investment in their emotional bank account to begin with, taking the time to understand them and then address the actual fear, a lot of times that makes all this go away as well. So that's another strategy you can use to break this down.
Yeah. And I would give one more. Talk slower when you talk about your ideas, because I know at least me, when I have a good idea, I'm like,
yeah.
Talk slower.
Yeah.
It's not that your spouse is stupid. It's just that they are not on the same wavelength as you when you're really excited about it. If you've got an entrepreneurial mind, especially if your spouse doesn't.
Yeah. If
your spouse is not as entrepreneurial, they're just literally just take breaths between every sentence. That's my one.
That's a great tip. I'm going to add that to my repertoire. I'll try to remember to send you a little commission check every time I use that. Okay.
There you go. And if you ever share that idea with anybody, you have to say my name and then I send you $100 though.
Okay. I know that from Ray Edwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
We $100.
We took that joke and ran with it. Yeah. I sent Ray an invoice one day for $12,000.
Awesome.
I think it was like $12,200. I made it I was like, and it was for what was it? It was called, and it said in the the for thing, it said for podcast name mentions rendered.
Yes. So, I talked to Ray the other day and I asked him and he said he would send me old recordings of when he was an FM radio DJ. So if I get those, I will share them with you because he says he still has them from when he was doing FM radio and he's going to send them to me.
That's back in Knoxville, probably.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk real quick. I mean, gosh, you've shared so much value so far. I want to talk real quick just about from some practical productivity tips. I mean, obviously, late night is not for me when I'm most productive. I'm actually well past, as we're recording this at 1:55 p.m. I'm like on the downside of my personal productivity thing. So for somebody who maybe isn't, whether late night, early morning, doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about. But they're fitting this into, a 10-hour day. They've already got 10 hours of work and commute and meetings and all that. They coach, their daughter's son's soccer. They've got, time, and they want to sleep 7 hours. So they're at, like an hour and 45 minutes. That's
right.
It. That's all they've got. How do they get, all the stuff done? What are some tips you'd have from a mindset, from a strategy, from just even a workflow standpoint that they could employ?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I teach. So I'm a big fan of two critical things that I think are just invaluable in this space. One is this idea of the 12-week year, which is an amazing book that talks about how you shouldn't have annual goals, you should have quarterly goals, and it teaches you how to break them down. And it turns out when you need to have focus, collapsing the year down into things that need to get done this week in order to be successful is incredibly powerful. And guess who has the most amazing journaling system for accomplishing things this week? It's our friend Michael Hyatt with the full focus journal. Easy for me to
over there.
So right. I've got mine right here. I'm working on it today. You're on it, right?
Love it.
So,
would you get one of the leather ones?
No, I have the new executive model. So it's I don't know how well you can see that.
I still just got a bunch of the old ones that he gave me. So
yeah, absolutely. So
I'm going through those.
I like the new ones even better. He's changed the format a little bit. But what that allows you to do is to know precisely what the 3 things are that you need to get done in your side hustle today. Absolutely, without question. And you can make them 3 big things or 3 small things sort of to fit your time available. But you know what those 3 things are, you need to do that. So that's the tools. The mindset that I would offer you is I tell side hustlers, the one thing I want you to do more important than anything else is to make sure from a tactical standpoint, a tactical tip, make sure that you get at least one thing done on your side hustle every day. Do not let a day go by where you don't do one thing. I don't care if it's a 5-minute thing or a 10-minute thing, but I want you to do that. And there's 3 reasons why. The first reason is making sure that you're working on your side hustle every day keeps it top of mind. So it keeps you engaged, and that one day never becomes 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. And then suddenly a week has gone by and it's next month and you haven't done anything. That's the first thing. Keep it top of mind. The second thing is neurological. When you keep something in the foreground of your conscious mind, your unconscious mind gets really busy solving your problems. And that's where these great ideas in the shower or while you're brushing your teeth come from. And so if you are always thinking about your side hustle business at least a little bit every day, your subconscious mind is going to offer you that great idea for your next product or that next direction you need to take while you're brushing your teeth. That's a great thing. And then the third reason I tell people this is because you will be stunned at how often that 5-minute thing that you'll get energized because you know why you're doing what you're doing. And that 5 minutes when you almost didn't go into your study, you almost turned on NCIS or FBI or whatever your latest thing is that you're watching on network television. You almost did that, but instead you followed my advice and you got excited. And instead of working for 5 minutes, you worked for an hour. And when you integrate up those times every day, for weeks and months, you'll be amazed what you can get done in a year. You'll look back, you won't even know how you accomplished so much, and the way you did it was in small bites, because that's how we eat elephants, right? We eat them one bite at a time. But if you stop chewing and you don't work for a week, you don't get anything done. So I say do a little something every day.
I love that advice because I think it's one of the things you mentioned there was just keeping it top of mind and kind of how the subconscious goes into it. And I think if you put in just a little bit every day, it allows you to, I mean, maybe you're listening, you probably shouldn't be, but maybe you're even listening to something on the way to work that has nothing to do with your side hustle. even like the news, which I don't recommend, but hey, whatever, your choice. And you hear something and you go, ooh, that's a good idea for a podcast.
Exactly.
I accidentally the other day was flipping through the channels because we had the kids in the car and they don't like listening to history podcasts. Actually, they do like listening to some biographical podcasts, but they don't really like listening to the history of the cons. I don't know why,
I understand.
And they certainly don't like listening to my motivational tapes.
Right.
On my
your
phone.
Zig Ziglar tapes or whatever.
Yeah. Although they've memorized a lot of Zig. If you start the quote, you can have everything in life you want. My daughter can say, if you help enough other people get what they want.
Yeah,
She can.
That's actually that's on the homepage of my Late Night IM website.
Yeah.
That is. I have a whole story behind that. We'll have to get in.
I should have my coffee mug because every morning I drink coffee from my "You can have everything you want in life if you'll just help enough other people get what they want."
I met him.
We talked about earlier with you and Cliff. So total see what we did there. But I think I was listening to. So I shared this with you beforehand. I'll actually just tell this. I won't tell the news one. I was listening to a biography of Confucius, and one of the things that I heard. It wasn't even about Confucius. They talked about the Zhou dynasty. I think Zhou. I had to look it up.
Okay.
So I would pronounce it Zhou. Maybe it's whatever. I'm not Chinese, if you didn't know. And it talked about how the dynasty began to fall apart in 650 BC, which ironically is roughly the same time period that the book The Tortoise and the Hare was written, which I think is a terrible business book. Okay.
Wow, interesting.
It's got some good principles, but I think it's terrible because it teaches people to move way too slow. The Zhou dynasty, then they go on and they're like, blah, 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 and they keep talking about the Zhou dynasty. They said it began to collapse in 650. It finally collapsed in 300 BC. And I went, wait a minute. That was 350 years. Governments today topple overnight on live television.
Right. Exactly.
Even the Soviet Union, which was before social media, before the internet, was we went to bed one night fearful of the Soviet Union. We woke up the next day, there was no Soviet Union. That's what it felt like as a 12-year-old in this country, at least.
Yep.
It was like days. It just collapsed. And it got me thinking, if governments, there's only 190 of them in the world. If a government of the Soviet Union and of Egypt and of Syria and, of Libya can literally one day be this form of government and the next not, can one day have this leader and the next not, and can completely collapse in a matter of moments, how fast do you need to move in business?
Yeah.
And the point, the reason I even thought that was because I think about my business all the time.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle. You'll start to connect the dots and you'll even get ideas from your full-time job that apply to your side hustle, but only if you're thinking about it every day for just a little bit.
Yeah,
that's right. That one. Love that one. Mark, where can people connect with you other than Twitter? And I want, again, remind you, tweet Mark Late Night IM at Late Night IM. Tweet him, tell him how much you love this episode. But where else can people connect with you?
Yeah, so of course there's the Late Night Internet Marketing website, which is too much to type, but that will work. If you type in latenight.internetmarketing.com, it goes to latenightim.com, and that's the home base, and all the places to contact me are there. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of the normal places, but latenightim.com is the best place. I'd love to hear from your listeners if there's anything I can do to help them. That's why I do that I do. And I try to answer every email. You can email me through the site. And I hear that I'm not always successful. Every once in a while, I hear somebody say, "Hey, you didn't answer my email." I'll go back. Sure enough, it got buried in some landslide. But absolutely, I'd love to hear from your people. And if there's anything I can do to help, I'd love to do that.
I love it, man. So go listen to his podcast too, Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast. You guys are going to love it. Mark, as we wrap up here, I just want to acknowledge you because, you've been doing this for 11 years. And I personally think, I kind of marvel I don't know how you have built, like you built an amazing, you call it a side hustle. It's really just a business. This way, it's just a business, you know, you have built an amazing business while working a full-time job. And it's,
Thank you.
know, it's a full-time job that, like, I mean, we were talking about earlier, you know, you got to commute. It's a very busy and intense full-time job. And I know what that's like, and I'm mentally drained, you know, so it would be like me doing another business on the side, which I literally can't even fathom of. So I want to acknowledge you for that. Guys, he's an amazing person. And I think one of the things you'll love about him, I don't know, somehow I didn't bring too much of it out except the beginning, but he's got a very similar sense of humor to me. And I like that. I dig it, you know, so if you've listened to more than 3 of my episodes and you've made it this far with me, you're going to love Mark's podcast. If this is only your second episode and you're starting to kind of hate me a little bit, don't go listen to
it. Might be in trouble. Yeah, it might not be a good place to go. I agree.
Just if you want like straight lace, go listen to somebody else. Also, don't listen to Ray Edwards or Cliff.
That's right.
You know, go listen to Michael Hyatt. Although he's been funny lately. He's actually, I'm impressed. He's telling some jokes on his podcast lately. I've been enamored by that. He's
changed a lot. You know, that Michael has really evolved over the last 10 years. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. He's actually a lot funnier than I thought. Yeah. You know, now that I've actually got to spend some time with him, he's got a good sense of humor. So anyway, hopefully he doesn't listen to that part. Anyway. Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Thanks, man. So I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mark as much as I enjoyed doing it, because it was fun. I mean, you could tell we had a really fun time. Like occasionally we chased a few rabbits. Hope you don't mind. That's just, you know, when you get the 2 of us together, that's how it's going to be. But I hope you got a lot out of it. And again, I highly encourage you to go check out his podcast, Late Night Internet Marketing. Subscribe, send him a message. Let him know you came from, you know, this interview. Let him know Matt McWilliams sent you. And because I know he would like to hear that. And then make sure you check out my interview that I'm on his show here coming up in just a couple of days. And you're going to love that. Again, he asked me some questions that nobody else asks. And we talk about some things that I've never talked about before. So I really enjoyed being on his show as well. And then check out those three of my most popular affiliate marketing reports that I offered his listeners. You can grab those at mattmcwilliams.com/3 report. So mattmcwilliams.com/3 reports. Go check that out. Check out Mark's podcast, and I cannot wait for the next episode. See you then. Thank you so much for listening today. Remember to check out all of our deep dives into affiliate marketing at theaffiliateguy.tv. And if you have a question, you can ask it at asktheaffiliateguy.com. Who knows? Might end up being featured on this podcast.